Well, 7 o'clock on the money. Excuse me. Looks like we're connecting into YouTube. There it is. Okay.
Good evening, Scott and Mike.
Good evening, Michael. Do you go by Michael? Do you prefer Mike?
As long as it's not Mikey, I don't care.
Okay. Give me a moment here. I'm a couple minutes behind myself as usual. Let me hide this. And open that. All righty, we'll give everybody a minute or two yet to get on in here before we get started. All right, we are at 7:02 on December 6th. Oh my goodness, one of our last meetings of the year.
Of this horrible year.
Oh, it has been a memorable year. I will call it that for sure. 1, 2, 3. We actually have 3 Sundays left in the month. So I think we've with three of them left. Haven't really decided too much what to talk about. Of course, it's going to be political in one way or another. Marijuana political in one way or another. All right, 7:03. Let's kind of get things rolling with the official welcome to everybody who's here with us this evening and anybody who's watching us later on YouTube. Thank you for joining us. All of our meetings are an environment of education and awareness and are not an open market for the sale, purchase, or distribution of cannabis. We do not encourage or condone illegal behavior of any kind. So yeah, it's just about the end of the year. Of course, we're going to be talking about the historic MORE Act vote in the House, U.S. House of Representatives this past week. Excuse me. I should have brought myself a beverage. And it was kind of interesting. I don't know if any of y'all watched it. I actually think it was a CNN link that I saw scroll by. I'm like, oh, I'm going to kind of go and watch this. And it started with what would you call it? Comments by representatives. And so there was a lot of I'll yield some time to this person and yielding time to that. And I'm not quite sure of all the process, but there was a lot of yielding a minute or two to this person and 2 or 3 minutes to that person. And they would have their say. One of them, and I don't recall her name, a Republican representative. Um, geez, I just lost the word for it. Called for a, I want to say reintroduction. It wasn't reintroduction. What the hell was the word for it? Um, and because they wanted to amend something and then some of the wording and then reintroduce it, which would have delayed the vote for one thing, I believe. Anyway, that had to be voted upon. So there was the process where they had to vote on that. Um, Nobody's signaling me that I can't be heard. So I'm assuming I'm still being heard. Okay.
Yep, we
Uh,
hear you.
cool. So that was kind of interesting because I wasn't sure exactly what was going on. And then there was also some piece of legislation that they were voting on for the uh, National Oceanographic uh, NOAA, and I couldn't even really tell you what that was about, but it was all kind of scheduled in together at the same time. So I had to kind of sit through that, and um, then there was the vote on that. Boy, I watched enough of it. You'd think I know what that was. No idea. Um, but there was then the vote on the MORE Act, and of course, the vote for the reintroduction. I'm going to call it because I can't remember the word for it. Do I have it written down on the table here? No. Um, got voted down. Was more nays than yays. So then they went ahead and introduced the MORE Act bill to the floor. Um, Again, not knowing the process, some of this is new to me watching this, is there was a little timer at the bottom of the screen, counting off about 15 minutes or so. And yet, after the timer stopped, they were still voting and going on. So I don't know how exactly the process is supposed to work. Do they kind of wait until everybody gets their vote in if they're on the floor, or they have a little time, another 15 minutes after the 15 minutes expires to show up, or but the vote was 222 to, I should don't, where's the other number? 156. Um, I have the picture somewhere. I don't even know if I have, I might have it as my Facebook. No, I don't. Uh, you'd think I'd have these numbers in front of me, folks, don't you? When you, but yeah, it was about 156 against. And I'm going to say that was roughly the right number. Oh, there we go. Um, do I have the numbers there? No. But again, this isn't a lame duck session. We know that this Congress is going to be ending shortly. Uh, but as National puts it, it's a historic day for marijuana policy in the U.S. It marks the first time in 50 years that a chamber of Congress has revisited the classification of cannabis as a federally controlled and a prohibited substance. And we know it's more of a symbolic effort. Um, it was not. It's not going to see the light of day on the Senate floor. All we can really kind of hope for is watch the elections in Georgia, where the two Senate seats are they runoff? I guess runoff votes. Um, and there's the one where a lot of people are hoping that they're able to flip them to Democratic side, because we know the Democrats are more likely to vote marijuana. And if those two seats do go, then puts 48 Democrats, 48 Republicans in the Senate. That puts the vice president as the deciding vote in there. Being a Democratic vice president, that gives the Democrats majority in the Senate. So instead of sitting and molding on Mitch McConnell's desk or whoever the new majority leader would be, if the Republicans retained, if the Democrats happen to take majority, we could see the MORE Act actually move through both houses and be written into law. Um, uh, that's still to be seen. Heck, I hear some people are still contesting the presidential counts. So who knows what can happen? Almost anything can happen. What does that mean for South Carolina? I didn't see, I have to admit, I didn't see who all in our representative voted. I know that Cunningham voted for the MORE Act, supported it because he posted about it. And I know Clyburn voted for it and supported it because he posted about it. I saw Michael Harvey post about, refresh me on his name now. I just blanked.
Joe
Wilson.
Wilson.
Wilson. He was against the MORE Act, but he's for medical, and it sounded like a lot of double talk in a way to me.
Yeah, I think he's just too pro Republican and pro Trump. I think that I'll bet you if this vote had been done in February and Biden and Harris were in the office, I think you would have seen him vote maybe differently.
That would be interesting. That's an interesting scenario, and we'll have to wait and see what happens because it's not done. It'll come back up for vote in the new legislature. So we'll get our opportunity to see, hopefully, if the Senate will move it forward.
It's that AMA letter I want to find. I think that was Representative Jim Gordon that brought it up. I could be wrong. The Republican from Ohio that read a AMA letter stating that they did not support. I don't think anybody, I know nobody in the ACNA, the American Cannabis Nurses Association, they've not found it. I'm hoping that maybe NORML might have an access to it.
So an AMA letter indicating that they do not support.
Yeah, there was midway between. Somebody stood up and read off a brief letter. They didn't read the whole thing, which worries me. He stated it had been submitted, or the AMA had supplied it 2 days prior to the voting. So I've had colleagues that have gone to the AMA medical site. They can't find it. The only AMA letter we've seen recently posted was for the Mississippi legalization. So I'm wondering if this wasn't an AMA letter that wasn't recent, updated, and it was being utilized as in a piss poor manner, I guess is my best means of putting it.
I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, because, here's the information that supports what we want. It's old and outdated. Well, we don't care. It supports what we want. This is what we're going to read. And you see that sometimes. I mean, Richard Nixon. I love talking about Richard Nixon. The Schaefer Commission had to do their study on marijuana. They recommended Nixon, decriminalize it. It's really not a big deal. He went nuts. I want it illegally. And he just spouted whatever he wanted to about it. And this sometimes, to me, it just smacks of that sort of thing. You look at a lot of the propaganda that's been generated over the past 50 years. There's a lot of stuff that can be taken and what I kind of am concerned about is, like you said, he said he received it 2 days previous. And that makes it sound like it was maybe new documentation or something like that. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it was older information. I don't know if we'd have any access to exactly what he was talking about either. But I'll look into it and I'll see what comes up at our monthly meeting or our weekly meetings.
I would hope that maybe if somebody from higher normal was to contact the representative, I would think he would have to produce it, since it was part of a Senate hearing. It has to be in a record for that Senate hearing, I would think, wouldn't it? If you introduce something, that document must be listed somewhere.
I
Just
would
like a
think
court
so.
hearing,
Right,
evidence.
right. You would think so. Um, so yeah, I'd be curious to see that AMA letter as well. Do you remember the representative that was?
I've got notes, but unfortunately, I have Jim Gordon down here from the Republican from Ohio, who was very anti, and then it's just a couple lines. I have the AMA letter, so I think it was Jim Gordon that made the comment.
I'm going to put it down here with a question mark.
I can go back to the C-SPAN article and determine if that's actually him, if need be.
Okay. um, yeah, I'm still kind of curious. I mean, because now that is part of the congressional record, but again, historic event that this had passed. It was kind of interesting because in the beginning it started off slow, and I think the nays were ahead of the yeas for a little bit of the early part of the vote. But then it turned around rather quickly. And yeah, I do have those numbers actually written in front of me. It was 228 to 164 was the final. Um, it was like 222 Democrats, one independent, and 5 Republicans. So it was very much along party lines. Um, the 164 did include, and I don't have it in front of me, but I believe it was 6 Democrats opposing it. Uh, and yeah, who knows what would happen in the next Congress when it gets voted on again, especially from the South Carolina point of view. This is probably one of the last pieces of legislation that Cunningham's going to be able to vote on. Um, as they get into their holiday break, and then that's kind of it. So we'll see. We'll see what happens as the legislation starts. We have started our process here of getting some letters drafted to welcome the new legislature. It's going to go out to basically all of the legislators. We'll put it out on Action Network, and allow voters to initiate these to their legislators. We don't want to just we are doing a variation from South Carolina NORML, which is, I'm kind of make a note of, becoming the new name of Lowcountry NORML. You've probably seen some of our social media already reflecting the change. No official paperwork's been done with any government agency yet, but that's all forthcoming. And we've changed our affiliation with NORML from a regional to a state chapter. Doesn't really mean a whole lot more than that.
That's awesome news.
Thank you. So with that, we are sending legislators, all legislators in the new legislature, an introduction letter, a welcome letter from NORML as well, that we will send separately to everyone. So we'll talk about that a little bit further down the line as those letters start getting drafted and we kind of get those into the system. I also have to work with NORML to work with Action Network and make sure that the databases are all updated before we try and start a new campaign with the new, so that they're not going to either dead end mailboxes or um, missing the candidate or missing the legislators that we're hoping to get them to. So hopefully that all coordinates out together. And I did see Jill Swing of the Compassionate Care Alliance announce that she's got her printout of the, as she called it, Compassionate Care Act 3.0. For some reason, I thought this was fourth session that this has been introduced at. But anyway, I know very little about it. I do know she said it was a 91-page printout. Don't know what font size we're using, but I'm assuming legal type size print, and I'm not surprised by it. And that it's going to be pre-introduced or early introduced on December 9th. So that's this coming week. What is that, Wednesday? Wednesday. Look at that. I can do math. And hopefully at that point, there'll be a link to it from SC statehouse.gov so that I can get eyes on it and see what it says. I do know that I saw one of the responses to her post, somebody said or asked about the tax revenue, 50% of the tax revenue going to law enforcement through SLED and the 46 county sheriff's offices. She said that has been written out, that has been removed. That was a big kind of complaint from a lot of folks, as far as it sort of sounded like
we were buying the vote.
extortion, bribery, however you want to phrase it. Yeah, I think some of it was more of a bribery. We were trying to buy their vote. It didn't work anyway. They still never showed any kind of inclination to support. And I liked her response to whoever it was. And I'm paraphrasing, so forgive me if I'm don't quite get it right, but she said it's no longer in the bill. Oh, somebody wants to enter. And now if SLED wants to increase their budget for this, they can go to the General Assembly and ask for it like everybody else has to. So I kind of like that.
But they shouldn't have to worry about the budget, because if we're not arresting people with simple possession, your cops are doing less, so they can actually tend to better laws. We're not arresting people, putting them in jail, so we need less prison guards.
They're going to come up with, well, we're going to have to buy this expensive testing equipment to make sure that, or, and mind you, if it's only for medical, it doesn't mean they're stopping arresting people. They might stop arresting some people. But yeah, so there is that side of it where, we're only not arresting the ones that are legally using it for medical purposes. I believe it was only about 11 qualifying conditions last time. Do you know how many qualifying conditions are in it at this point, Mike?
No, I don't remember. It's close to that. It's real, and it's a lot of them that are more terminal, which really stinks.
Yes, I know she also had commented that there is no home grow in it, which I know a lot of citizens want. There's also no flower available at the dispensary. You'll be able to get like tincture and edibles and that kind of thing, concentrates. And there was a no smoking. And that was another thing where, that ties in law enforcement. Law enforcement wants that switch that they can turn that says legal, not legal, legal, not legal. I smell it burning. Burning it is illegal, and that's why they don't want smokable. Um,
Is that also include vaping when in the smoking by chance?
well, if you're not able, that's why you're not. They want flour taken out of it, because if you're not able to get flour, you don't have flour to vape. You can still
Well,
probably vape concentrates.
that's what I'm speaking about. The concentrates or the oils. Because for,
Right.
medical cannabis to actually work, and unless your pain isn't intense, something sublingual or ingestion is going to take hours to take effect. So it's a disbenefit to our patients.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've read reports and seen, many posts about a lot of PTSD sufferers prefer smoking. It gives them that more immediate response that they're looking for, and that more immediate relief. um, so I know Pennsylvania, when they first passed medical, they did not have flour available in it either. Um, and many of the states, as they're bringing on medical initially, have in their initial legislation not allowed smoking it and having flour available. But most of those have changed within the first year or shortly after. um, so I, with that, give me away that giveaway to the law enforcement. I'm a lot happier with the bill. I know that smokable or flower should come along. Like I say, if it's a year in most places, it's probably 3 in South Carolina. Uh, I hate to say it and admit it, but I do believe that. um, but on the flip side, to even hear, Joe Wilson, would you say he had a B rating on our site?
Yeah, I'm
On
not sure if it was a B minus or a B plus, but yeah, it's a score that needs to be downgraded to at least a D, if not an F.
Okay, I thought that was Rice that had the higher one. I didn't think Wilson had one that high.
I'll go
Um,
back and check.
oh, I'm thinking federal level anyway with Rice. But yeah, Wilson as well. Uh, yeah, we'll take a look at that and yeah, adjust as we need to for sure. I'm thinking that's still active and live. My understanding is Normal's looking to kind of keep that voter guide going basically continuous to the next election. I think in years past they've like taken it down and then put it back up. A number of months before, like after the primaries or near the primaries, should I say? Um, it would be before the primaries, when in there, but generally they ramp up before the generals. Um, so I'll keep you posted on that. What National's looking to do with their collaboration with that organization that has that database for us. Excuse me, I'm getting parched again. Um, because it is a handy tool, especially as we get into, well, we won't have any big elections now for a little while, but
No, but I would like to know which politicians to address directly as that are negative. So I go to the Smoke the Vote probably weekly to look at different politicians in this state, or other than just my own here in Columbia. It's a good site.
it is a good site. Unfortunately, we don't have enough responses we'd like from the legislators. Um, and that's why you'll see a lot of them have no information whatsoever. But it is definitely handy. I'm hoping they get to keep that up year round, because I'd like to kind of, I'd like to work with that a little bit more.
So in their letter that you send out to them, does it have at the bottom stating that if you fail to return this letter by, the submission date, that you'll automatically be granted an F? I mean, instead of just a blank, they're all getting it. We know that. If we need to, we could send it COD, not COD, excuse me, signature requirement. It's just there are a lot of them that are afraid to step out and make a stance.
Right. And so what a lot of that takes too is then just to have the voters, us, keep an eye on it, see how they behave when they're voting on marijuana related legislation, report it into that smoke the vote site because you can put stuff in there. You can, and that's analyzed by somebody out at National. Couldn't tell you who exactly today. Um, and as long as there's verifiable links to the information, they voted this way or that way, or they stated this on an interview on such and such a site, or on a newspaper, or whatever it was, and try and give a link to that. Um, that way we can document it and kind of keep track with what's going on with our legislators. So yeah, I'll have to kind of. Where did you see that from Joe Wilson? Was that something he posted on his website, on his Facebook or something?
I mean, my post that was a satire on Wilson.
Oh, was it a satire?
Oh hell yeah!
Okay.
Next time I'll put a little smiley face. Yeah, that was me being very sarcastic after the twit voted. I'm one of those rebels. You'll have to excuse me.
Okay. I thought he actually said something dumb like that. Yeah.
No, he's not gonna say anything dumb like that.
Well, I will push over. Anyhow, um, you know, now interestingly enough, there is a fair number of South Carolina Republicans that are supporting the medical. Um, Now I heard somebody say it doesn't seem like the Democrats do. I don't believe that. I just don't think there's that many Democrats in South Carolina. Um, and the majority show that. But I think the other side of that too is, and this is something I kind of learned early on. It's not that it's difficult to get a legislator to um, sponsor legislation. If we had well-written medical bill copied from another state and handed it to a legislator, it doesn't take that much to get one of them to say, "Yeah, I'll sign on to that," and sponsor it and submit it to the submit it. The hard part is getting a legislator that can garner support from his fellow legislators, his or her fellow legislators, to co-sponsor, to sign on, to move it through the committee that it starts in, because usually bills introduced, it goes to committee. Quite often they go to committee to die, and that's where I think maybe that kind of comment that I saw was coming from is I don't see Democrats sponsoring the legislation for medical here in the state. If they are, it goes to committee, it dies. It probably doesn't move very far. Um, so we'll see. I'm kind of excited to see what happens as the new bills get introduced and the new legislature starts. Um, how many we come up with, how many are medical, how many are decrim. I know last time there was quite a few. I think 22 was the highest number of bills that I saw with the word marijuana related to them. And so we'll see how it happens this time. I mean, for South Carolina, that's a pretty good number. It's at least being introduced. It's being discussed to a certain extent. I sadly think that it's just up to us as voters, as citizens of South Carolina, to start just banging away at our representatives and say, we need to move this forward. We need to do. Yeah, I'm not saying, hey, let's get full legalization here in South Carolina in this session. I know better than that. I know that's not going to happen. Let's get something at least like Davis's restrictive, but a medical marijuana bill. Let's move that forward. Let's get at least some relief for some people. And let's then really, in my mind, is let's focus a lot on the decrims. They've been sort of introduced in the past. And I think all the ones in the last session or this session were all submitted by Democrats. They never went anywhere. If we could find a Republican in the House and a Republican in the Senate to co-sponsor, sister bills into their perspective House, that'd be great. That'd be a real big step if we can get bipartisan legislation started and get that moving forward. I'm not sure. I haven't heard anything yet on what who if anybody is going to be kind of submitting a companion bill to Davis's. Last time it was Peter McCoy from here in Charleston area. He is no longer in that position. He's moved on. Oh gosh, I forget her name from Folly Beach now. That's now in that seat. Anyway, a Democrat and a freshman legislator. Be quite honest with you, even McCoy's bill didn't go anywhere. It saw a hearing. It got no vote. It never got to a vote. So, even in its committee, so it ended up dying in its committee there too. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. The one thing I did hear, I can't verify it, but I did hear, I think Tom Davis say something along the lines of, if he can't get this passed, he's going to then introduce a bill to allow the voters to vote on it at a state level, to have, a ballot initiative. That would mean probably changing the Constitution of the South Carolina, because its Constitution doesn't allow for that. So, he can introduce a bill. I don't think it would really go anywhere. I don't know, but there is a fair amount of support for his bill. It really had momentum until COVID hit us this past year. I'm glad it's been rewritten, at least as far as what I know has been rewritten in it. I want to read it a little further. But I think it's at least a little better than it had been. It's not, by changing that, it's probably not going to buy him any favor with law enforcement, but he's got no favor with law enforcement on a marijuana bill anyway, as long as we still have Nick Master and as long as we have Chief Keel and many of the sheriffs that we have. So we'll see how that all goes.
Hey, Scott. So I haven't
Yes.
looked at who won this last election for the state, but there were a lot of Democrats listed on the Smoke the Vote. Ivory Thigpen for District 79 is medical use. Beth Bernstein, Democrat, decriminalize. Leon Howard, decriminalize. Todd Rutherford, Democrat, legalize, tax, regulate, decriminalize, medical use. According to there's about 6 of Democrats. I just hope some of them stayed
Yeah, I
in.
know I'm friends with Ivory Thigpen on Facebook. I haven't communicated him about a decrim yet, but I'll take a look at some of those, because I do want to reach out, as I said earlier, as we get this legislature started. And some of those are already in place.
Right.
The problem I'm seeing with that is, can we get them just to introduce legislation? Yes, because they're a Democrat and Republican-controlled legislature, both the House and the Senate, would it go anywhere? So we preferably try and find initial sponsors that are Republican.
Or co-sponsors, like you said. I think the co-sponsor thing is what really needs to occur. We just need to find out which Republican and which Democrat is our best suited. I mean, I don't know. I'm not really big into.
All right, see what Joey has to say here. I didn't see the comment pop up. No, what I'm being texted here from Joey is that he was tweeting with Senator Davis. Senator Davis indicated that recent legalization efforts in red states could factor into South Carolina legislature this year. And then yeah. So, and he's right with the, I kind of forgot about that side of it for a moment. So thanks for refreshing my memory. But yeah, there were states that voted for it, had the ability to vote for it, that were red states. They voted it in despite what their legislators wanted, because they had the ability to vote it in. So that um, could factor into South Carolina legislature this year as well, or this session as well, as they seeing other red states are getting legalized for medical or for recreational, and they may just see that the movement coming. Um, and then Joey followed up that he did say he would put a bill through to introduce it let the people vote on it, but he didn't indicate how he'd accomplish that. I love that. Great. Oh, okay. He sent that to everyone. I'm reading it out to y'all. So they must admit that last I saw was a comment that South Carolina is now the last state that does not have a border touching a legalized state for medical or recreational purposes. All others have at least one border that's touching a legalized state. And that's changing things as well. I do, because I moved to Charleston to South Carolina from Pennsylvania, watch what goes up in Pennsylvania a little bit, and with the legalization in New Jersey, again, in New York, it's going to all just domino effect. I just don't know how long it's going to take to get to South Carolina. So that's kind of what I had to talk about tonight is the Morax. It was more symbolic than anything. We definitely will have to keep hammering away at all of our legislators. I will look into what you mentioned to me tonight, Michael, about Jim Gordon and that AMA letter.
Hey, Scott,
Yes, Joey.
I wanted to mention the governor of Virginia stating that they would legalize cannabis. That had an almost immediate effect in North Carolina. They put forth a special legislative commission to study the impact of cannabis legalization in the state of North Carolina very shortly after Virginia's governor made that announcement.
Wow.
So,
I don't think I was
my,
following. Very interesting.
yeah, my point being, I don't think it's going to be all that long before South Carolina will be bordered by a state that has some type of legal access to cannabis.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I agree. I agree. And now I don't know if I'm as optimistic as Tom Davis, but he believes he's going to get it passed this in 2021 in the first half of the 2-year session. Um, we'll see. You know, we'll help as much as we can. We'll push it. Um, More power to him if we can move something forward here and at least have some limited medical. Um, I forget where somebody showed me something where there was one state, I think they're, oh geez, what state was it? They were actually saying like the hemp was their medical. They had that 3% THC in it. That's good enough. That's their medical marijuana. Or some very restrictive variation of that. Anyway, that's where we are here in South Carolina. That's where we are as far as the MORE Act is, going anywhere. I know a lot of people have commented over the past few days. It's just going to go to the Senate and die. We don't expect it to go anywhere this session. It was definitely more of a symbolic effort, symbolic vote, but it was definitely a strong vote. We had that 228 that voted for it. Against 164 that voted against it. That's pretty historic. Uh, we're on the right track. Definitely, 50 years NORML's been working at this, and this is the first time that Congress has brought up a decriminalization bill in Congress for the federal level. So your efforts are paying off out there. Our efforts are paying off. As I, feel we kind of celebrate this weekend, but back to work Monday. Let's kind of see what we can do to move this forward. I will keep you posted on a subject for next week's talk. Um, Let me just double check notes down here. Yeah, I'm kind of watching some of the comments here. South Carolina, where I'm at, is in the Charleston area. I keep hearing that, oh, we're a little blue dot in a big red state. And I really don't know how, I don't really know how hard it must be to fight this fight in like other areas of the state. There's a couple other little blue dots, but most of the state's very strong red. Um, and we have been seeing the numbers of Republicans climb for at least medical use. I think the numbers have been up to about 62 or so percent in the polling that are at least in favor of medical. Um, it's just the legislators themselves, we saw at the federal level the other day. The vote was very much along party lines, and I don't know what to predict for South Carolina for this year. All we can do is kind of cross our fingers, hold on tight, and enjoy the ride as best we can. But yeah, we'll keep you posted on what we're going to try and do about it here at NORML and the new South Carolina NORML as we move that forward. Did I have anything else I wanted to touch on tonight? Not necessarily. I think I want to kind of keep some of the things I have under my hat until next week. So unless anybody has any other comments about marijuana, South Carolina, how to change laws, I'm going to kind of call it for the evening, and thank you all for being with me. As always, you can still reach us at normalsc.org or find us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Look for South Carolina NORML, as well as our YouTube channel. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and get notifications, I think, when we post videos like this. And don't forget, when you're on our website, scroll all the way down to the bottom of the first page and you can sign up for our monthly newsletter. That's it for me tonight. I'm Scott Weldon with South Carolina NORML. We will see you right back here again next week at 7 o'clock on Sunday. And then I get a quick look here. 1, 2. Oh, our monthly meeting will be coming up on the 15th of December. So 2 days after next week's meeting. We'll talk a little bit more about normal administrative stuff at that particular meeting. But watch our Facebook for a topic on next week's South Carolina Cannabis Conversation Online. Otherwise, thank you all for joining me. I appreciate it. And let's see what we can do to change some laws here in South Carolina. Have